Thanks so much, Alderman. You put a personal face on Memorial Day, and we're going to continue to do that. We do it certainly by our presence, but when we hear the stories that touch home, that speak to our own recognizance, and while we can have an appreciation, as Christian reminded us, of the greater sacrifice of the hundreds of thousands over the years, it is that personal impact that makes such a difference. And so to continue that theme, it's my honor to call on Richard, call him Dick, Diller, who is a distinguished serviceman from the United States Air Force. He's from lots of combat. After that career, he went into commercial aviation and has continued to be involved in matters greater than himself throughout his adult life. He is so involved today with us, and it's my great pleasure to call on one-time Captain Dick Diller, author of Firefly, a great book about a secret war, and he will continue, as I say, to put a personal face on Memorial Day. Please welcome Dick Diller.
These are words from a well-known speech. From these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain. Those words, of course, are from Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and they state very well why we are here today. From the very beginning of our democracy, generations of mostly young people have served in the armed forces, and many have not returned to their families, and they are why we are here today. Memorial Day is a day of love and a day of respect. To many people, Memorial Day is a vacation day or a shopping day. It's the start of summer, a day that has lost its meaning. It's probable that the majority of people don't know anyone who died for us, so it doesn't have a first-hand meaning to them. By your presence here, you have shown that you have respect for the meaning of the day, a day to honor those who gave their lives for our country, and I thank you for coming. I was an A-1 Skyraider pilot in the Vietnam War, and I would like to introduce you to some of my friends who didn't come home. First Lieutenant Jim Herrick was a graduate of Iowa State University, and his goal in life was to be a veterinarian. We flew together several times, and at times when we returned from a late mission, we took off our shirts and we played ping pong until we were hot and sweaty. On October 27th, 1969, Jim Herrick was on a mission in the mountainous terrain of northern Laos in the monsoon season. He was doing his best to accomplish his assigned mission in the clouds. When his flight leader decided that the clouds were too low for them to work, he called on the radio and said, "Let's go above the clouds and start a new plan." Jim acknowledged that transmission. Because of the clouds, the two pilots were not in visual contact, so we don't know what happened next. But Jim Herrick was never heard from again. His crash site has not been located, so remains have never been recovered. He would have had his 25th birthday the next day. Jim Herrick was the oldest of 8 brothers, and with one older sister. One day when the movable Vietnam Wall came to town, I volunteered to help people find names. I saw a couple wearing motorcycle clothes and asked if they needed help. The man said, "No, my brother," he said, "we're familiar with the wall. My brother was killed in Laos." I replied that I had a lot of missions over Laos. "Do you know what kind of part of the country he went down in?" "No, but his name was Jim Herrick." I was the first person anyone in the family had talked to who knew Jim and at least a little about what had happened to him. Jim's parents are still alive today, and his family is still grieving all these years later. Their brains are telling them that Jim's not going to come home, but their hearts don't want to let go. 2 days before Jim Herrick's accident, when I reported for a briefing for my mission, the intelligence officer who briefed us said An F-4 Phantom had crashed that morning into the high terrain in southern Laos. I found out later that the pilot of that plane was Captain Gray Warren. Gray Warren and I had flown F-106s in a previous squadron and had become friends. He was a graduate of the Air Force Academy and was from Des Moines, Iowa. He was one of the truly outstanding people I have ever known. Fun to be around. What a waste. His remains have never been identified. In June 1967, Captain Jack Swanson was an F-105 pilot who was shot down over North Vietnam. He was able to get past the shoreline and out to sea before he had to bail out of his airplane, but he's never been heard from again. Jack Swanson was from my hometown of Princeton, Illinois, and was a graduate of the nuclear engineering program at the University of Illinois. He was licensed to operate the university's nuclear reactor. On the afternoon of January 10, 1970, I had a nice visit with First Lieutenant Rick Chorlins. We flew a mission together that night over the Ho Chi Minh Trail and got shot at as we usually did. The next night, Rick was on the same mission in the same airplane I had been in the night before, and I was scheduled about 2 hours later. When I was in briefing, word came to the command post that Rick had been shot down. Rick was another Air Force Academy graduate, and he was from the St. Louis area. After he graduated from the academy, he went to graduate school at Georgetown and graduated cum laude. It was an unusual sequence of events because most graduates went directly to pilot training, and he was proud of having his master's degree. I've spoken to academy classmates of Rick Chorlins, and they are unanimous that he was one of the smartest guys they knew. He finished right at the top of his class. And they also comment on his military bearing, meaning that he was well organized in his personal life. They wanted to be around Rick because they felt that some of his aura would reflect on them. Now I want to talk to the younger people here this morning. Thank you for coming. I know that these occurrences I have just related to you happened a long time ago, but that doesn't make them any less real. These were real people who gave their lives for our country, and they and many, many others just like them from many generations are why we are here today. I hope you will make attendance at Memorial Day services a part of your lives, always. I hope my stories and my friends help you put an identity upon those to whom we dedicate this day. Thank you.